I can't wait for Starfield to launch and see all the weird and wacky ship designs that people make. I'm going to make the Serenity from Firefly. Man, I wish that show was still going. Anyway, let's break down the ship customization in Starfield. Let's go. Let me know in the comments what sort of ship you're going to build. And this is the last of my direct breakdowns. I've got some lore videos coming, specifically one about factions and some others, but let me know in the comments anything specific you'd like me to dive into before we get to Starfield's launch. Let's first cover customizing your ship. Now, before you can customize a ship, you do need to register it. So that includes if you have, say, stolen a ship or found one out in the world. Who knows if you can just like find derelict ships around, but you will have to register it before you can actually customize it. You will also apparently need the Starship design skill in order to upgrade certain parts of your ship, similar to, say, how you would mod your armor or weapons in Fallout. You will need a specific skill in order to purchase specific ship upgrades and building materials. There are 13 different components, and what each of these does we will break down shortly, but you've essentially got three options when you're choosing what to upgrade from these different components. The first is to upgrade that specific part, which will essentially just, increase its overall stats and it won't change the overall look of your ship. You can then jump into the ship builder, which will allow you to essentially customize the entire ship, or you could simply, buy or steal other ships and not even worry about upgrading if you so choose. We also see a home ship, which indicates like your main ship that you'll be using. This will be the ship that you'll take everywhere. My guess as well is that there'll be ways to like summon your ship, say, your crew will like fly it over to you if you're like ages away from you, sort of like, summoning a horse in these games, right? You know what I mean? So let's start with the ship overview screen and then we'll get into the nitty gritty stuff. So from this ship overview screen on the left, we first see the ship's systems, which is that energy allocation. I broke this down in my ship travel and combat video, so go and check that if you haven't, if you want full information there. But other than that, now the main thing that we see here, other than the different allocation in the ship overview, is the indication of fuel, so how far your grav drive can actually take you in terms of its fuel consumption. We see the hull, which is your like ship's overall defenses, so like its armor rating, and we see cargo, which this dev absolutely has weight or mass turned off, right? You can see how much they're actually carrying on this ship. Now, interesting thing to point out here as well is shielded capacity. Now, this to me is going to be linked with the contraband system. Say you can hide or smuggle things by shielding some of your cargo. So when you get scanned, as you say enter, as we see in the direct, when they enter that system and they go through like a contraband scan, say if you've got a various amount of things that you're trying to smuggle, it needs to be shielded so that you can avoid that contraband scanning. Now, further on this list, we also see reactor, which if you count the little lines, there's 14 of them. So your reactor directly indicates the amount of energy that your ship will have. We see the crew amount, so how many crew can be on the ship. Jump is referring to how many light years the ship can jump in one jump. So there'll be lots of star systems that you'll need to actually travel to via a certain amount of light years, and some of them might be further away. So the more your grav drive can actually jump in terms of light years, the further you'll be able to go. Shield, which indicates another defensive stat. So before you take hull damage, you'll need to get through the shield. So obviously having a good amount of shields is important. And then the last three are your weapon systems. So in this screenshot, we've got lasers, ballistics, and missile systems connected to this ship, but you'll be able to change that depending on the weapon systems that you actually have applied. So from this screen on the left here, we can see there's two options. There's ship builder and upgrade ship. So in the upgrade ship screen, this will allow you to quickly upgrade specific components of your ship without diving deep into shipbuilding or adding major components to the ship. It's really just upgrading things you have. A good example that's used in the direct is upgrading your various weapons. And I did mention in my previous video that I wasn't sure if you could say weapons would do more damage to shield or hull or something like that. You can actually see this here with the Mauler autocannon that does 18 hull damage and only 6 shield damage. So it does more damage to hulls. So you'll probably want to use something else, maybe a laser weapon to get rid of that shield, and then use these to finish it off by dealing the hull damage. But let's have a look at the 13 different components that you'll be able to upgrade and add. First, we'll talk about cowling. Now, cowling is described as the structural components that are largely cosmetic and allow you to modify your ship's shape, size, personality, and silhouette. So if you want your ship to look a specific way, cowling is probably the way you'll go about that. Shield generator, I mean, that's pretty obvious. That's like your shield, so your defenses. Docker is your entry or exit point when boarding other ships in space. So it would be like the little circular system that allows you to connect to other ships. Fuel tanks are your fuel, so more fuel tanks means more fuel capacity to travel further. Your grav drive, which we all sort of know what is, that'll be connecting to how far you'll be able to jump to different systems via light years. Weapon systems will be a big one. So there are plenty of different weapon systems for starships. Now, this will also, when you're looking at the different weapon systems, we can see the class of them, their range, the fire rate, the hull, the shield damage, their max power, the hull, and all that stuff. Like you can see all this on the weapon upgrade screen. Now, these weapons will do more damage to specific parts, like I mentioned, but it will also be important that you have various skills, because there are skills linked to all of these different weapon systems in the tech tree, which I did break down in my other video as well. HAB, or HAB, stands for Habitat Modules. Now, this is basically like the major living areas, right? So in the shipbuilder section, we can see there's like the companionway, the all-in-one berth, a storeroom, engineering bay, captain's quarters, computer core. So think of things like your, say, crafting rooms or storage rooms. Those sort of things will all be like habitat modules that you'll add to your ship, and that will significantly increase the overall size of your ship, because these are definitely going to be larger areas for the ship itself. Engines relate to the general maneuverability, the top speed and movement of your ship when you're just moving around in space, not when you're traveling via like light speed, you're just sort of moving around. Cockpit is pretty self-explanatory. It's where you go when you're flying this big bad ship, and also control your flight path from here. The cargo hold is your overall storage, so you'll store things in here. Obviously, the more cargo hold you have, the more mass it can hold, and we did talk about shielded capacity a little bit earlier. Reactor is your max energy allocation, so how much energy you have available to you to put into those weapon systems, or the shield, the engine, or the grav drive. Now, we can see the player upgrading the reactor at one point, adding the ion beam H1010, and this generates 16 power. It has a class, it has a repair rate, a reactor health, and just a general health. Not sure what the difference is, and it's interesting to point out that they are separate, because this clearly means something. There's also a crew rating here, so maybe they like specific reactors, sort of like makes them happy, a bit like settlers in Fallout when you add like decor and stuff to your settlement, something like that. And the landing gears, well, that's pretty obvious what that is. So in the shipbuilder, you can fully customize your ship's design, and in the direct we see a whole bunch of completely different layouts, designs, and color systems. And I wanted to break down these a little bit, because we get a little bit more specific when you get into the nitty-gritty of this. We can see that you have to test the flight of these ships you build. We even see errors if the ship is, say, missing parts. And in one point, we can see the player adds a grav drive, which clears the error, and it's like the final piece for that to make the ship nominal. Then you can run a flight check. We also see warnings at various points, say when this ship has like a huge mass and cargo, so maybe that's what the warning is, but there's plenty of information on this screen that we don't get in the ship overview. It's displayed in a different way, so it is sort of similar, but we see those weapon systems, we see the total hull as well as the total shields, the cargo size, the max crew that can be on the ship, the jump range, which we've already talked about. Mobility is an interesting one. I'm curious to know exactly what this references, right? Is that just like how maneuverable the ship is in space? Like if you can pull off spinning and other cool tricks like that, and like how this relates to top speed, so how fast that overall ship can go. I'm curious to know if this is related to mass, right? So you've got like the total mass of the ship. Maybe if the ship has a really high mass, it affects the overall top speed and maneuverability and mobility of the ship. Not sure exactly there, but there's a lot to break down here, and I can't wait to get my hands on it and really dive into the shipbuilding system. I'll have plenty of videos breaking this down, and the best ship designs and things that you should add to your ships when the game does come out. But let me know what sort of ship you're going to build in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.